Madison Clark walked into her penthouse just after midnight heels, still on a failed contract folded inside her coat pocket. The lights were off. From the living room came the soft sound of a guitar and a man's voice she had never heard before, steady and low. She stepped closer and froze. Caleb Brooks, the single dad she had hired to clean her apartment, was singing a song that made her chest collapse. Beside the guitar sat an old cassette tape, and Madison realized he knew something about her past. The penthouse always smelled the same when Madison walked in lemon polish, fresh linen, nothing personal. That was the point. She had paid for a life that left no fingerprints, and for 3 months, Caleb Brooks had kept it that way, without ever asking what kind of woman lived inside it. He came twice a week, quiet on time, gone before she returned from the office. He never asked for more hours, never made small talk in the elevator, never left a note on the counter. The agency had sent him after her last housekeeper quit without warning, and Madison had approved his file in under a minute. Single father, multiple part-time jobs, decent references. She had not bothered to read the rest. Her assistant mentioned once that Caleb also worked nights somewhere downtown, and that he was always careful about his hours. Madison had nodded the way she nodded at most things that did not concern revenue. To her, he was a service, a function, a man whose name she remembered only because it appeared on a recurring invoice every 2 weeks. That night was supposed to end differently. Madison had walked into a boardroom on the 40th floor expecting to close a $100 million acquisition. She had walked out 2 hours later with a folded contract and a polite refusal from a man who had spent the last 6 months pretending to be interested. Her driver took her home in silence. She did not cry. She never cried over deals. By the time she stepped out of the private elevator, it was past midnight, and the only thing she wanted was the dark of her own apartment and a glass of something strong. Instead, she heard the guitar. She stopped at the edge of the hallway. The living room was dim, lit only by a single lamp she rarely used. Caleb sat on the low couch, sleeves rolled to his elbows, an old acoustic guitar resting on his knee. He was not playing for anyone. He was playing the way people play when they think the world is asleep. Madison had heard professional musicians at private events, men and women paid 5 figures for an hour of polished noise. None of them sounded like this. The way Caleb's fingers shaped each note, the way his voice broke and recovered without trying it, was the sound of a man who had once lived inside music and had not visited it in a long time. Then the melody settled, and something in her chest gave out. She knew the song, not the words, not exactly, the shape of it. The pattern of the chord changes. She had heard it once years ago on a rainy night she had spent the rest of her life trying not to remember. Caleb finished the last note and did not look up. On the table beside the guitar lay an old cassette tape, the label peeling at the corners. He reached for it the way a man reaches for something he does not show anyone. That was when he saw her standing in the hallway. He stood up too fast. The guitar nearly slid off his knee. Madison watched him steady it before he spoke a single word. "I'm sorry," Caleb said. "I thought you weren't coming back tonight." Clearly. He set the guitar down against the couch. The cassette stayed in his hand, half hidden the way a person hides a wallet from a stranger. "I finished the floors at 10, he said. "I should have left already. There was a guitar in the storage closet. I assumed it belonged to the previous tenant." It did. She walked past him into the room and dropped her coat on the armchair. Her voice stayed even because she had built it that way. Underneath, something old and embarrassing was trying to climb back up. "That song you were playing," Madison said. "Where did you learn it?" His grip on the cassette tightened. "I wrote it." The word landed in her ribs before she could stop it. She turned to face him properly for the first time since he had started working for her. "You wrote it. A long time ago." "You're a cleaner," Madison said. "Yes. And you wrote a song that I—" The sentence stopped itself. She walked to the window, kept her back to him, made her shoulders straight. Where did you play it? Small bars, Caleb said. Mostly in the city. There was a band. We never got a record deal. We opened for people who did. And then I stopped. He sat back down on the edge of the couch slowly, as if the conversation itself had worn him out. The cassette was still in his hand. He did not put it on the table. What's on the tape? She asked. Demos. Old ones. Nothing important. Then why do you carry it with you? He did not answer. Madison turned around and looked at him properly. He was not the same man who had handed her a cleaning invoice 3 days earlier. He was thinner in the shoulders than she had noticed. His eyes did not lift to meet hers. Mr. Brooks, she said, and the formality felt wrong in her own mouth. I hired you to clean an apartment. I did not hire you to perform in it. I understand. You should have left at 10. Yes, she could have stopped there. She could have told him to leave the keys on the counter and never come back. The contract allowed it. Her instinct, the one that had kept her sharp through 15 years of boardrooms, was already drafting the dismissal. A neat ending. Nothing complicated. But the song was still in the room. She could feel it the way a person feels the cold after a door has closed. That song saved my life once, Madison said. Caleb finally looked up. I don't say that lightly, she added. I don't say things like that at all. But it did. I was 23. I was about to make a decision I could not undo. I heard that song on the radio in someone else's car, and I changed my mind about one thing. Just one. It was enough. Which thing? Not your business. He nodded, accepting it. That more than anything else told her he had once been someone people listened to. She crossed the room and stopped in front of the couch. The cassette was still in his hand. I'm not going to fire you tonight, Madison said. I'm also not going to pretend I didn't hear what I just heard. So you have a choice. You can finish out the week, collect your check, and we never speak of this again. Or you can tell me your name properly, the one you used when you wrote that song. His thumb moved across the peeling label. It's the same name, Caleb said quietly. Caleb Brooks. I just stopped saying it that way. Then say it that way again. Once. So I know I heard it correctly. He looked at her. For the first time since she had walked into the room, his eyes did not slide off hers. Caleb Brooks. I wrote a song called The Room Without Windows, a long time ago in a band that nobody remembers. Madison felt the floor of her chest open and close. She did not let it show on her face. Finish the week, she said. We'll talk again on Friday. She walked to the kitchen, poured the drink she had wanted an hour ago, and did not turn around until she heard the front door close behind him. Only then did she look at the couch. The guitar was still there. The cassette was gone. Friday came, and Madison did what she always did when a problem refused to leave her desk. She opened a file on it. She had her assistant pull every public record under the name Caleb Brooks, narrowed by age by city. By the years, a band might have played small rooms downtown. Most of what came back was useless. A handful of credits buried in liner notes. A few photographs from venues that had since closed. In every image, he was standing slightly behind the singer, head down, hands on the strings. He had written more than she expected. His name appeared on songs that other people had recorded, polished, released, and forgotten. He had been the kind of musician the industry uses and does not pay properly. The kind that builds the song and then watches someone else sign the back of the check. There was no scandal, no drug story, no betrayal big enough to make a headline. He had simply tried for a long time and then stopped. The folder was thin. That was the worst part of it. When Caleb arrived for his Friday shift, Madison was already in the kitchen, 2 coffees on the counter. He stood at the doorway. With his coat still on the way, a man stands when he is not sure whether he is being thanked or fired. Sit down, she said. He sat. She slid one of the coffees across the marble. I looked into you, Madison said. I want you to know that before we have this conversation, I don't pretend to be surprised by people. I prefer to be informed. All right. You wrote songs that other artists made money on. You played in rooms that did not put your name on the door. You stopped about 6 years ago. Is that accurate? Close enough. What's missing? He turned the cup in his hands without drinking from it. What's missing is that I kept trying for 2 more years after I should have stopped, Caleb said. I thought if I made 1 more demo, played 1 more bar, somebody would finally hear it. They didn't. So I got a job that paid every Friday, and I stopped pretending Friday was going to look any different than the one before it. Madison watched him. He spoke without bitterness, which somehow made it worse. Bitterness she could have argued with. This was just a man reciting a list of facts he had already accepted. I want to help you record those songs again, she said. No. You haven't heard the offer. I don't need to. I have access to a studio. I have producers I trust. I'm not asking you to be famous. I'm asking you to put down a clean version of the work so it exists somewhere outside that cassette. No, Caleb said again, and this time he set the cup down. I appreciate it. I do. But I'm not going to do that. Why not? Because the worst thing that ever happened to me wasn't failing. It was being good enough that people listened, and then walking away anyway. I don't want to find out the world still has the same answer it had 6 years ago. I'd rather not ask the question. He picked up a cloth from the counter, and started cleaning a surface that did not need cleaning. Madison let him. She understood the gesture. She had used work the same way for 15 years. Over the next 2 weeks, the apartment kept its rhythm. Caleb came in on his scheduled days. He polished, vacuumed, restocked, and left. He did not bring up the conversation again. Neither did she. The guitar stayed where he had left it the first night, leaning against the couch untouched. He had begun keeping a small canvas case in the storage closet during his shifts, the kind a man uses when he carries an instrument across the city by subway, and he picked it up on his way out each evening. Madison began coming home earlier than she used to. She told herself it was about the negotiations she was preparing for. She did not let herself examine the other reason. Some evenings, she sat in the living room with a glass of wine and a stack of contracts, and the guitar sat across from her like a witness. On a Tuesday, Caleb stayed past his hours to fix a cabinet hinge that had been loose for months. Madison was in the kitchen. She had not asked him to fix it. He did it the way he did everything, quietly with his back to the room. "There's a track of yours I keep coming back to," she said. He did not turn around. "It's called The Room Without Windows." His hand stopped on the screwdriver. "I told you about a night a few weeks ago," Madison said. "I told you a song saved my life once. I didn't tell you which one. It was that one. I heard it from a car stereo on a street I have not been back to. It was raining. I was about to do something stupid. The song finished, and I didn't do it." He set the screwdriver down on the counter. He still did not turn around. "I didn't know it was yours," Madison said. "Not until I saw you with that cassette, the one with the peeling label. That's the demo, isn't it? The one before anyone else got near it." "Yes." "Where did the version I heard come from?" "A friend of mine had a college radio show," Caleb said. "He played it twice. That was the only time it ever made it on the air. So you must have been in the right car at the right hour." She did not answer right away. He finally turned around. His face was harder than she had ever seen it. "You think this is a beautiful coincidence," he said. "I can see it on you. You think the universe brought us into the same room because we were already connected. That's a story you'd like to tell yourself. I haven't told myself anything. You're telling yourself it right now." The kitchen was very still. Madison set down the glass she had been holding. "What do you want me to say, Caleb?" "Nothing. I want you to be careful with what you do with this, because I know what people like you do when they find a story like mine. You frame it. You put it on a wall. You use it to feel something you've been missing, and then you move on because that's what your life is built to do. That's not fair. It might not be. It's still true. Madison felt the words land in a place she had spent 20 years armoring. The honest part of her recognized them before her pride could deflect them. She had built a life that produced outcomes. She had not built one that produced feeling. Somewhere along the way, she had started using other people's pain to remind herself she still had a pulse. "You're right about one thing," she said evenly. "I have been empty for a long time. I didn't know I was until you started playing in my living room. That isn't your problem. But it's not nothing either." He looked at her for a long moment. Then he went back to the hinge. "Finish your wine, Ms. Clark," Caleb said. "I'll be done in 10 minutes." She did not finish her wine. She left the kitchen and did not come back until she heard the front door close. 3 days later, Madison made a decision she should not have made. The company's annual fundraiser was 8 weeks away. It was the kind of event where she gave a controlled speech, shook 200 important hands, and raised 7 figures for a foundation board that mostly funded itself. Every year, the entertainment slot went to a name the press could photograph. This year, she had not chosen one yet. She thought about Caleb, not as a guest, as a closing act. She knew he would refuse if she asked him directly, so she did not ask. She had her assistant retrieve the canvas case Caleb kept in the storage closet, opened it, and copied the demo cassette inside without disturbing anything else. She had the demo digitized within a day and slipped the case back where it had been. She sent the file to a producer she trusted, a man named Daniel Hayes, with a note that said simply, "Tell me if this is real." Daniel called her back within 48 hours. He told her the songs were the best unreleased material he had heard in 5 years. He asked who the artist was, and whether the artist was available, and whether Madison had the rights to bring him in for a session. "I'll handle it," she told him. "Hold the slot." She told herself she was protecting Caleb. She told herself he would understand once he saw the room, the lights, the audience that paid attention because they had paid for the seats. She told herself a lot of things in the days that followed, and none of them were the truth, which was that she had decided his life would look better if she rearranged it for him. Caleb came in on a Thursday. Madison met him at the door with a folder. "I want to talk to you about something," she said. "Sit down." She did not give him a coffee this time. She gave him the folder. Inside it was a printed agreement, an event date, a fee that was higher than anything he had ever been paid for music, and a paragraph about a producer named Daniel Hayes, who had already cleared his calendar. Caleb read the first page. He read the second. His jaw set in a way Madison had not seen before. "You sent him the cassette." "I sent him a digital copy. Without asking me." "I knew what you would say." "Of course you did," Caleb said. "That's why you didn't ask, because you didn't want my answer. You wanted my work. That's not what this is. That's exactly what this is." He closed the folder. He set it down on the marble with a control that was somehow more frightening than anger. "Do you know how many people have done this to me?" "Madison." His voice was very quiet. "Producers, singers, friends, people who heard something I made and decided they could move it around without me. They told themselves it was for my benefit. Some of them even believed it. Every single one of them ended up with a credit, and I ended up cleaning apartments. I'm not taking a credit. You don't have to. You already took the choice." She tried to answer. She could not find anything that did not sound like what every other person had said to him. Caleb stood up. He took his keys out of his pocket, the spare set she had given him, the one for the service entrance, and laid them on top of the folder. He walked to the living room, picked up the guitar, and brought it back. He set the guitar on the couch by the door. "I'm not taking it," he said. "I haven't been able to play it since I was 28. I just thought for a few weeks that I might. That's on me." "Caleb, you don't owe me anything. Pay out the rest of the contract or don't. I'll send the agency a note. They'll cover the next few visits." He walked to the door. He did not slam it. He closed it the way he had closed it every other night, quietly, like a man who had learned that loud exits did not change anything. The apartment was clean. It had never felt emptier. The fundraiser took over the top floor of a hotel on Park Avenue 8 weeks later. Madison wore black. She shook the hands she was supposed to shake. She smiled at the donors who liked it when she smiled. She walked through the rehearsal of her own speech with the ease of a woman who had given 200 speeches in 15 years, backstage behind a velvet curtain that the audience would not see. The entertainment slot sat empty. Daniel Hayes had called her 3 times in the past week to ask if the artist was confirmed. She had told him yes every time. She had not heard from Caleb. She had stopped expecting to. The plan, as far as anyone knew, was that a special closing performer would take the stage at 9:45. Madison's team had built a small platform, a single stool, a single microphone. They had asked her what kind of lighting the artist preferred. She had told them low. She had told them no introduction. At 9:15, an assistant came up to her with a tablet. "Ma'am," the assistant said, "we still don't have him. Should we move to the backup?" "Not yet." "It's getting tight." "Not yet," Madison said again, and the assistant walked away. She stepped behind the curtain. The stool was there. The microphone was there. And against the back wall, set down by someone she had not authorized, was Caleb's guitar. A folded note had been left on the strap. It said in Daniel Hayes' handwriting, "This was dropped off at the front desk an hour ago." No name on the delivery slip. She did not know what to make of it. She did not need to. She understood looking at it that there were only 2 endings to this evening. One of them ended with her going on stage and giving the speech she had practiced, the one about generosity and vision and quarterly impact. The other ended with her telling the truth. The first ending kept her image clean. The second one cost her everything she had built her face on. For the first time in years, Madison Clark did not have a plan that fit on a page. She stood backstage in a black dress that had been tailored for a different woman, looking at a guitar that had arrived without a sender, and listened to a room of 200 donors waiting for something polished. The fundraiser was running. The cameras were ready. The teleprompter was loaded. And Caleb was somewhere in the city with no reason to come, no reason to forgive her, no reason to bring her anything except silence. She had used her power to corner a man who had asked for nothing. She had told herself she was lifting him. She had simply been moving him. The assistant came back. "Miss Clark, 2 minutes." Madison nodded. She did not move. Behind her, the guitar leaned against the wall exactly the way it had leaned in her living room, the first night when a man she had hired to clean her floors had played a song she had spent 20 years trying to forget. The assistant came back at 1 minute. Madison handed her the prepared speech folded once down the middle. "I won't be reading this," Madison said. "Tell the teleprompter team to kill the feed. I'll speak from the front of the stage." "Ma'am." "Do it." The assistant left. Madison picked up the guitar by the neck, carried it through the curtain, and set it down on the stool that had been waiting for someone else. The lights were already on her by the time she reached the microphone. 200 faces turned in her direction. Cameras in the back of the room adjusted their lenses. Somewhere near the front table, a foundation board member checked his watch and prepared to be flattered for 45 seconds. Madison did not start with the foundation. She did not start with the numbers. She did not start with any of the lines she had rehearsed in her car that afternoon. "There was supposed to be a musician on this stage tonight," she said. "I told all of you that he was confirmed. He wasn't. I'd like to explain why." The room shifted. Donors did not expect to hear the word "wasn't" from the woman who ran the evening. "Several months ago, I hired a man to clean my apartment," Madison said. "His name is Caleb Brooks. He came twice a week. He was quiet. He did his job. I paid him through an agency, and I never asked him a single question about who he was before he walked into my building. That is the kind of woman I have been for a long time." She kept her voice level. She had given hundreds of speeches. The muscle for it was still there. What was different was that for the first time, she was not performing. "One night, I came home from a meeting that did not go the way I wanted. I heard a guitar in my own living room. Caleb was sitting there with an instrument he had found in a closet. He was playing a song that I recognized, although I should not have. He had written that song 20 years ago. It was never released. It happened by an accident I still don't understand, to be playing on a college radio station, on a night when I was very close to making a decision I would not have come back from. I did not make that decision. The song was the reason. She did not look at the cameras. She looked at the side of the room near the doors the way a woman looks for someone she has not earned the right to see. I told myself when I found out who he was that I was going to help him. I told myself I was going to put his work back in front of people. So I took his demo without asking him. I sent it to a producer. I wrote his name onto a contract he had not signed. I told him about it after the decisions had already been made, and I called it a gift. A few of the donors looked at each other. Madison kept going. He told me very calmly that I had taken the only thing he had left, which was the right to choose, when his own voice came back into the world. He was correct. He returned my keys, and he walked out of my apartment. And in the 8 weeks since then, I have not been able to look at the empty stool in my living room without understanding exactly what I did. She stepped sideways. She set her hand on the back of the stool. The guitar caught the light. "I hired a man to clean my home," Madison said. "What I should have hired was someone to teach me how to live inside it. I've been very good at building rooms with no windows in them. I've been very good at making sure no one ever sees the inside. Tonight that is over. Whatever this evening was supposed to look like on paper, it is not going to look like that anymore." She let her hand fall away from the stool. "If Caleb is in this room, and I have no right to expect that he is, I am not asking him to perform. The instrument is here. The chair is here. If he still has a song the world has not heard, this room will be quiet enough to hear it. If he doesn't want to play, I will respect that the way I should have respected it the first time." She stepped back from the microphone. She walked off the stage slowly and stood in the dark at the edge of the floor. For nearly half a minute, no one moved. The room had been built for applause and did not know what to do with silence. Then, someone at the back stood up. Caleb walked through the rows in the same plain coat he wore on his shifts. He had not dressed for the room. He was not pretending to belong to it. He reached the front, climbed the 3 steps to the stage, and stopped in front of the stool. He looked at Madison. She did not move toward him. She did not nod. She had used up her right to direct him. He sat down. He picked up the guitar. He spent a few seconds tuning it the way a man tunes an instrument he has not stopped loving, only stopped using. "This song is called 'The Room Without Windows,'" Caleb said into the microphone. "I wrote it a long time ago. I am only going to play it once." He played it. There was no band, no second microphone, no backing track. The lights did not change. He sang the way he had sung in Madison's living room, low and steady, as if the song had been waiting under the floorboards for a long time and was only now being allowed up. His voice cracked once in the middle verse. He let it crack. He kept going. 200 people in formal wear sat in a hotel ballroom and forgot for the length of one song that they had come there to be photographed. Madison stood in the dark at the side of the stage. She had told herself for years that she did not cry, and the muscle had held through layoffs, through her father's funeral, through the worst negotiation of her career 3 months earlier. It did not hold here. The tears came down her face quietly without sound, and she did not wipe them away. She was not crying because she pitied him. She was crying because she finally understood that he had never needed her pity. He had needed a room that would shut up long enough to listen. When the last chord faded, Caleb set the guitar across his knees and looked out at the audience, the way a man looks at people who have just heard him for the first time and may never hear him again. He did not bow. The applause came slowly, and then it did not stop. He did not become a star that night. The story did not work that way. There were no record executives backstage with a contract. There were no headlines the next morning calling him a discovery. The room emptied. The cameras moved on. The donors went back to their cars. But Daniel Hayes was waiting in the lobby when Caleb came down. He did not pitch him. He gave Caleb his card. He told him simply that whenever Caleb was ready, the studio time was his on his terms, with no one else's name attached. Caleb put the card in his coat pocket. He thanked him. He made no promise. Madison met him outside the hotel. The street was wet from a rain that had passed while they were inside. "I'm not going to ask you to forgive me tonight," she said. "I'm going to ask you something else. If you want to record those songs, I'd like to pay for the studio. Every artistic decision is yours. My name does not appear anywhere. If you want a different producer than Daniel, I'll find one. If you want to stop halfway through, you stop. The money is not a favor. It's the closest thing I have to an apology that doesn't ask anything back." Caleb looked at her for a long moment. "I'll think about it," he said. It was not yes. It was not no. It was the first honest answer he had given anyone about his own work in a very long time. In the months that followed, Caleb stopped cleaning the penthouse. He took Daniel's card out of his coat pocket on a Tuesday morning and made the call. He recorded 6 songs over the spring. He played them in small rooms in the city places with 20 seats and good acoustics, where people came to listen instead of to be seen. He still carried the same scars. He no longer treated them as evidence. Madison's penthouse changed, too. She kept the lemon polish and the fresh linen. She added other things. A second armchair turned toward the window instead of toward the room. A record player. A few books with cracked spines. Some evenings, she came home and did not turn on her phone for an hour. The walls she had built without windows were learning slowly to let some light through. The lesson, if there was one, was not about rescue. People do not give up on what they love because they have stopped loving it. They give up because they have been told no enough times that they no longer have the courage to ask. The kindest thing anyone can do is to stop talking long enough for them to play again.